I never thought the man who raised me in secret would be the one to save me from the family that tried to erase me. But the day the lawyer opened that envelope in front of everyone, I watched my mother's face turn white, and I finally understood why my grandfather had been so quiet all those years. What would you have done if the people who mocked you your whole life were suddenly begging you for mercy? My name is Renee, and I'm 34 years old. For most of my childhood, I lived in my grandfather's small house on Maple Hollow Road, not because I wanted to, but because my parents couldn't be bothered. My mother, Denise, and my father, Craig, ran a struggling furniture store, and whenever money got tight, I got sent to stay with Grandpa Walt for a while. A while turned into years. My older brother Tyler and younger sister Bree stayed home. They got new clothes, vacations, birthday parties with real cakes. I got hand-me-downs and a room above Grandpa's garage. At family dinners, my mother would introduce me with a laugh that never quite reached her eyes. "Oh, that's Renee, Grandpa's shadow. Follows him everywhere, poor thing." Everyone would chuckle. I would smile too, because what else was a 12-year-old supposed to do? Grandpa Walt wasn't warm in an obvious way. He didn't hug much or say sweet things, but he taught me how to fix a leaking faucet, how to balance a checkbook, how to read a contract before signing it. "Nobody's going to protect you if you don't understand what you're agreeing to," he used to say. I didn't know then how much those words would matter later. He ran a modest two-land hardware business for 40 years. My parents always rolled their eyes about it. Grandpa's little shop, my father called it, like it embarrassed him. They never asked how it was doing. They never asked if he needed help. They just assumed there wasn't much they're worth asking about. Have you ever felt like you were tolerated instead of loved? That was me at every holiday. Tyler got praised for his football scholarship. Bree got showered with attention for her dance recitals. I got asked, almost as an afterthought, "So Renee, still living with Grandpa?" Like it was a diagnosis instead of a childhood. When I turned 18, my mother told me flatly it was time to figure things out on my own, since Grandpa had done enough. I remember standing in the kitchen, stunned, while she sipped her coffee like she hadn't just closed a door on me. Grandpa Walt was the one who paid my community college tuition, quietly, no lectures, no reminders. He just believed in me when nobody else bothered to. I worked my way through school, became a paralegal, and eventually built a small but respected reputation at a law firm in Ohio. I got married to a kind, steady man named Marcus. We had a daughter, Ivy. Through all of it, Grandpa Walt showed up. Every recital, every graduation, every hospital visit. My parents showed up when it was convenient, which wasn't often. Then, 3 years ago, Grandpa Walt got sick. Heart failure, the doctor said. I moved back to Maple Hollow Road to care for him, the same house that once made me feel like an outsider in my own family. Funny how life circles back. During those last months, I started noticing things. My mother and father visiting more than they had in a decade, always finding reasons to be alone with Grandpa in his study. Tyler bringing just checking in phone calls that somehow always turned into questions about the business and the property. One evening, I overheard my father on the porch telling my mother, "The store's worth more than people think. We just need him to sign it over before the illness gets worse." I stood frozen behind the screen door. Can you believe my own family did this to me? Not because I was surprised they wanted money, but because they were planning to take it while he was still breathing. I never told him what I heard. But Grandpa Walt wasn't a fool. One night, as I helped him into bed, he grabbed my wrist and said, "Renee, when I'm gone, don't trust the comm. Read everything." Every word. I nodded, thinking it was just an old man's anxiety. I had no idea he was preparing me for war. He passed away that November. The funeral was small, dignified, and painfully quiet. My mother cried the loudest, which felt strange considering how little she'd visited him over the years. Grief, I've learned, isn't always about loss. Sometimes it's about opportunity closing. 2 weeks later, we all sat in a lawyer's office, my parents, Tyler, Bree, and me. The attorney, a calm woman named Ms. Alvarez, opened a sealed folder. My mother sat up straighter, clearly expecting good news. Grandpa Walt had left the house and a modest savings account split evenly among his children and grandchildren. Standard, unremarkable. But then Ms. Alvarez paused and said, "There's a supplemental document. Mr. Walt requested it be read only if certain conditions were met, specifically if any attempt was made to alter the ownership of Walker Hardware before his passing." My mother's smile faltered. It turned out Grandpa Walt, despite pretending to be a simple old man tinkering in his shop, had kept meticulous records for the past 2 years. Bank statements, recorded phone calls with his own permission disclosed to himself for safekeeping, notes about visits from my father pressuring him to transfer ownership of the business for tax purposes, a journal detailing dates, times, and exact quotes from conversations where my parents attempted to manipulate him into signing over assets while his mind was, in his words, not what it used to be. He'd suspected exactly what they were doing. And he'd built a case, quietly, the same way he taught me to check contracts before signing them. Ms. Alvarez explained that the documentation, combined with medical records showing Grandpa's mental competency at the time certain pressure was applied, was enough to support a claim of attempted elder financial exploitation. My parents weren't going to prison. The case wasn't criminal, but civil. And Grandpa Walt had left specific instructions. If any beneficiary was found to have attempted coercion, their portion of the inheritance would be redirected entirely to a trust set up for Ivy's education, managed by me. My mother's face went from pale to furious. "This is insane," she snapped. "He was manipulated by her," she said, pointing at me. As if I had orchestrated my own grandfather's dying wishes, I stood up, hands shaking but voice steady. "I didn't write a single word of this. He did. Because he saw what you were doing, and for once in his life, he decided to protect the one person you all overlooked." The room went silent. Tyler wouldn't meet my eyes. Bree looked at the floor. My father muttered something about lawyers twisting words, but Ms. Alvarez calmly slid the recorded transcripts across the table. "What would you have done?" Sitting there, finally holding proof of everything you always suspected but were too afraid to say out loud. The court didn't send anyone to jail, but my parents lost their claim to the business, and the story quietly spread through our small town. People who once respected my father's shrewd business sense started asking questions. My mother stopped attending her book club, embarrassed by the whispers. It wasn't dramatic revenge. It was quieter, and somehow more painful for them. The slow unraveling of a reputation built on pretending to be the golden family while treating me like an obligation. I used part of the trust to keep Walker Hardware running, the way Grandpa Walt always wanted. I hired one of his old employees to manage it. Every time I walk through that shop, I think about a man who never said "I love you" out loud, but proved it in ledgers, notes, and a will designed to protect me long after he was gone. I used to think being called Grandpa's shadow was an insult. Now I understand it was the truest compliment I ever received. I learned that love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet man writing everything down because he knows exactly what kind of people he's dealing with. Have you ever had someone believe in you when your own family didn't? If you have, hold on to them. They might be the only ones telling you the truth. If my story meant something to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below.